They said I signed the papers, said I walked in, smiled, gave them everything, and signed. But I didn't. And I never smiled at thieves. The first time I heard about the documents was from a man in a gray suit who introduced himself as Mr. Keller from the county office. He arrived mid-morning, polite and crisp, asking if I needed help moving out of my own house. I stood there on the porch in my slippers, holding a mug of tea that suddenly tasted like dust. "I think there's been a mistake," I said slowly. Mr. Keller blinked. "You are Mrs. Virginia Hull, correct? Owner of the property at 1083 Bellflower Street?" "I am." "And you signed the deed transfer 3 weeks ago in the presence of a notary. There's a full file with your signature. We processed it. It's all official." I stared at him. My hand trembled slightly, but I steadied the cup. "I never signed anything." He paused, then opened his folder, turned it toward me. "Ma'am, that's your name right there, your signature. It matches the one on your driver's license. Everything is in order." And there it was, my name, written in careful, slanted letters. My hand, but not my hand. My signature, copied, forged. They must have practiced. I shut the door before I threw the cup. The tea spilled on the hallway rug. I didn't care. I sank into the kitchen chair and tried to make sense of what just happened. The house was gone? Given away? By me? No. It had been my home for 47 years, built with Henry, painted every spring, weathered storms and weddings. Every drawer knew my hands. Every floorboard had heard my laughter or my grief. I didn't sign it away, but someone did. Someone who knew me well enough to fake it. I didn't need to guess long. 3 weeks ago, my sons came by. Both of them. That should have been the first sign something was off. They only showed up together for funerals or football. "Just thinking ahead, Mom," said Dale, the oldest, sitting too straight on the couch like a salesman. "If anything happens, we should have things in place. A simple power of attorney. Nothing serious." "You're not getting any younger," added Mike, the younger one. Always blunt. "It's not like you're going to be doing cartwheels next year." I looked at them both. Dale with his expensive watch, Mike with his car keys jangling in his nervous fingers. "I'm fine," I said. "I don't need anyone signing for me." "We're just trying to help," Dale pressed. "God forbid something happens, a fall or memory problems. Banks freeze everything. The house gets locked in probate. This way, it's smooth." I said no, kindly but firmly. I thought that was the end of it. Now I know better. That was the setup. When I refused, they forged it. I didn't call them right away. I sat there, in the silence of the house I supposedly no longer owned. My hand hovered over the phone. But I knew that if I dialed Dale or Mike, they'd act surprised, confused, hurt. "Mom, what are you talking about?" We'd never. They would. They did. And if they were bold enough to fake my signature once, what else had they touched? I went to the drawer in the secretary desk. My private drawer. The one with the good pens and the folder labeled Essentials. Inside were my savings account statements, the old will, the insurance policy Henry and I took out in 1982. Everything was still there. But it meant nothing now if they had copies, if they were already moving things behind my back. The next call I made was not to my sons. It was to Patricia Mendez, the lawyer Henry and I had trusted when we first drafted the will. She was retired now, but I still had her number. She picked up after the second ring. "Virginia Hull," I said. A pause. My goodness, haven't heard that name in years. "Everything all right?" "No. They forged my name, Pat. They stole the house." She didn't ask who. She didn't need to. Do you have anything? Any proof? They said I signed 3 weeks ago. I was in Bakersfield that day, visiting Ruthie, my old neighbor. She had surgery. I remember because we watched the news together, the dates on the paper I brought her. Keep that paper. I already did. We'll start there. I looked out the window. The lawn hadn't been mowed in 2 weeks. The boys used to come do it years ago before everything became transactional, before every visit came with a price. They think I'll roll over, I said quietly. They always do, Pat replied, until they see what happens when we don't. Ruthie still had the paper. I called her the same afternoon, hands cold, mind sharper than it had been in months. Virginia? She said, surprised. Everything okay? I need a favor, dear. Remember when I came to see you 3 Fridays ago? The day after your gallbladder surgery? Of course I remember. You brought lemon cookies. Why? Do you still have that newspaper I brought? The one I tucked under your water jug? I think so. Why? Could you look? She didn't ask any more questions, just said, "Give me 5 minutes." I stood at the window while I waited, my thumb pressing the edge of the countertop over and over. A small, circular pain bloomed in my chest, not panic, something deeper, older, like shame. But I hadn't done anything wrong. I wasn't the one lying. 5 minutes later, Ruthie called back. Got it, October 12th. Still folded with the crossword half finished. Why? Can you keep it safe for me? It's just a newspaper, Virginia. Not this one. It was a lifeline. Time-stamped. Location-stamped. Proof that I wasn't anywhere near the notary office on the day those papers were allegedly signed. When I called Patricia back and told her, she exhaled. Not relief, but strategy. Okay, here's what we do. First, no sudden moves. Don't alert them. Don't let them know you know. They already sent a man to the house. That's county processing, not them. Your sons probably think you're none the wiser. Keep it that way. We'll collect quietly. Collect what? Layers, timeline, witnesses, any bank activity, any video footage. We build the record backward. If they faked one signature, they probably faked others. But how do we... Virginia. Her voice was calm, clear. You raised 2 grown men. You ran a household, a budget. You survived Henry's death and a broken hip. Trust yourself. I wanted to cry, but didn't. Instead, I said, "Thank you," and sat down at the kitchen table. 3 weeks ago, October 12th. I pulled out my paper calendar, the old kind, with worn leather corners and pen scratches. There it was. Bakersfield Ruthie, 3 p.m. I'd written it in green ink, and below it, in the corner, a tiny note. Prescription refill. Walgreens. I'd used my card there. A timestamp. Another breadcrumb. I spent the evening combing through receipts, statements, anything with a date and a location. Then I remembered the gas station just off I-5, where I stopped to get gas. New pumps, cameras everywhere. I'd paid at the counter. Maybe they had footage. By 9 p.m., I had 3 things. A dated newspaper in Ruthie's apartment, a Walgreens receipt for 4:37 p.m., and a fuel charge from Midway Gas with a timestamp of 5:12 p.m., all in Bakersfield. Nowhere near Fresno, where the notary office claimed I had signed a property transfer at 4 p.m. sharp. I slept lightly that night, one eye on the hallway, half waiting for a knock or a call. None came. The next day, I dressed carefully, slacks, cardigan, low shoes. I didn't want to look frail. I wanted to look like someone who remembered everything. The Midway gas station wasn't far from Ruthie's. The cashier, a young man with tired eyes, barely looked up when I approached. I need to speak to your manager, I said. About? An incident 2 weeks ago. Might have been captured on your security cameras. He blinked. They wipe every 10 days. Are you sure? He shrugged. Depends, unless someone saved it. Can I speak to someone who might know? He hesitated, then went into the back. 5 minutes later, a woman emerged, hair in a tight bun, clipboard in hand. Ma'am? I explained everything. Not the forgery, just the date, the receipt, the pump number. I just need proof I was here, I said. She gave me a long look, then nodded. We don't keep all footage, but the inside counter is motion activated. Let me check. She disappeared. When she returned, she had a USB stick in her hand. You paid inside, didn't you? I did. Here's the footage, time-stamped. You're wearing blue, cardigan with daisies. I almost wept. Why are you doing this? She asked gently. Because my sons tried to take something from me, I said, my voice quiet. And they think I won't fight back. She nodded slowly. Well, now you can. I left the gas station feeling 10 years younger. With that video, the receipt, and the newspaper, I could prove I wasn't even in the same county when the papers were signed. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed to see the signature. The real one. Or rather, the fake one they claimed was mine. So I made the next call. Fresno County Records Office, a man answered. I introduced myself, explained I wanted to view a property deed filed under my name. Ma'am, you'll need an ID and possibly a notarized request. I'll bring both. Do you know the recording date? October 12th. He paused. That's recent. Yes, I said tightly. Very. The records office smelled like dust and disinfectant. That bland government scent that makes everything feel official, even betrayal. I waited in a hard plastic chair with my purse clutched close and the USB from the gas station tucked inside, like it might burn a hole through the lining. A young woman behind the bulletproof glass called my name. Mrs. Hull? I stood, smoothing my cardigan. Yes. Follow me. She led me past a row of file cabinets and into a small viewing room. Neutral walls, a desk, and a monitor already loaded with documents. Your file's digital, she said. We uploaded everything the day it was processed. You can scroll through here. Let me know if you want a printout. She left, door clicking softly shut behind her. I sat down and clicked the mouse. Property transfer of ownership, 1083 Bellflower Street filed, October 12th, 10:34 a.m. signed, 4 p.m. same day. Witnessed by Carla D'Angelo, Notary Public. The PDF opened. My stomach tightened. There it was. My name. My signature. Except it wasn't. The handwriting was good, very good, almost flawless. But it wasn't mine. Not really. The slant was a little too clean, the loops too closed. The spacing off by a breath. If I hadn't spent decades writing my name, I might have missed it. But I had. I'd signed cards, checks, letters, forms. That signature on the screen wasn't mine. They'd practiced. Probably traced it first, then copied until it looked natural. My hands were cold on the keyboard as I clicked print. The printer in the corner whirred to life, each sheet falling into the tray with a soft slap. The next document was worse. Durable power of attorney, full authority. Effective, immediately agent. Dale Hull. Co-agent, Michael Hull. Signed by me, again, and this time notarized by the same woman, Carla D'Angelo. I stared at the screen. Full access, immediate authority, over everything, the house, my savings, my medical decisions. They hadn't just stolen my signature. They'd tried to steal me. I clicked print again, faster this time. By the time I left the office, I had a thick folder under my arm and fire in my chest. The woman at the counter offered a polite smile. "Did you find everything you needed?" "Yes," I said, voice steady. "More than enough." I didn't go straight home. I drove to the edge of town, to a red brick building with ivy on the side. First Pacific Financial, my bank for 32 years. I asked to speak to Richard, my account manager. He'd been polite, professional, distant for most of those years, but I'd seen something human in him when Henry died. He came out a few minutes later, dark suit, tired eyes. "Mrs. Hull?" he said, surprised. "Everything all right?" "No," I said. "I need to talk to you in private." He led me to his office. I waited until the door clicked shut, then placed the folder on his desk. They forged my signature, took my house, filed a fake power of attorney. He blinked. "Your sons?" I nodded once. He opened the folder, scanned the documents quickly. "You want to freeze the accounts?" "Yes, everything. Immediately. I can place a 72-hour internal hold while we file for full legal block." "Do it." He paused. "You'll need to speak to legal counsel. A power of attorney overrides most standard security." "Not this one." I slid the USB across the desk. "That's a video of me paying for gas in Bakersfield. Same date. Same hour the documents say I was signing papers in Fresno." He looked at the stick, then at me. "I'll start the process. And I want to set up a new account," I added. "Trust-based. Controlled by me. With limited access. One beneficiary only." "Who?" "My granddaughter, Elise. Not your sons? They've had enough." Richard nodded slowly. "Understood." It took the rest of the afternoon, but by the time I left, every penny I had was out of their reach. The old accounts were frozen. The trust was established, pending paperwork, and I had an appointment with a lawyer Patricia recommended. Someone sharp, fast, discreet. The moment I stepped outside, I felt the weight shift. Not gone, but moving, like I'd taken the first brick off a heavy wall. I went home and made tea. The phone rang. I let it, then checked the screen. Mike. I stared at it until it stopped. He didn't leave a voicemail, but he would. Soon. The voicemail came at 9:12 p.m. "Hey, Mom, just checking in. Wanted to see how you're doing. Haven't heard from you in a bit. Dale and I were talking about stopping by sometime this week, maybe Thursday. Let us know, okay? Love you." The tone was sweet. Performed. Like someone practicing empathy in the mirror. I didn't call back. Instead, I walked through the house room by room, taking inventory. Not of furniture, but of memories. What I'd built. What they wanted to claim without lifting a finger. The office still smelled faintly of Henry's aftershave. The laundry basket in the corner. The old tin box with his cufflinks. They wanted this. The whole life I'd built. Like they deserved it just for being born. In the kitchen, I opened the drawer where I kept my formal mail. The kind you don't throw away. Tucked in the back were 2 letters from my old insurance agent. I flipped them open, scanned the fine print. Sure enough, I'd named Dale as a secondary contact on one, years ago. A precaution, now a loophole. I circled the date and made a note to remove him. By morning, I had a list. Contact insurance office. Cancel all linked authorizations. Visit notary. Meet Patricia's contact. Find Carla D'Angelo, the notary who supposedly witnessed my forged signature. I started at the notary. Her name came up with a quick search. Mobile notary, listed under a business called Central Valley Signings. Yelp reviews praised her efficiency. One called her fast and discreet, which made my skin crawl. I called, got voicemail. Hi, Carla. This is Virginia Hull. I'm calling regarding a notarized document filed under my name on October 12th. I'd like to speak with you as soon as possible. I didn't say more. Didn't have to. If she was part of it, the name alone would make her sweat. Next, I met with the lawyer, Thomas Nguyen. Sharp suit, younger than I expected, but with a stillness that said he knew how to win. Patricia had sent everything ahead, including the forged documents and the footage from Bakersfield. He didn't waste time with sympathy. This is criminal, he said flatly. Straightforward forgery, multiple counts. If we push, this goes federal. Do we push? He looked at me, not like I was old, like I was powerful. I'll prepare everything. You'll need to file a sworn affidavit. After that, it's just a matter of timing. What happens to them? That depends. Best case, they lose access to your estate. Worst case, jail time. I let that settle. Then I nodded. As I was leaving his office, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Hull, this is Carla D'Angelo. Got your message. Please call me back. ASAP. I stepped into the corridor and dialed. She picked up fast. Mrs. Hull? Yes. There was a pause. Listen, I didn't know. Okay? I didn't know. Didn't know what? The papers. The signature. Your sons told me you couldn't come in, that you were recovering from surgery. They brought in documents, said you'd pre-signed. I checked the ID. It looked real. I thought it was legit. Did you see me sign them? No. Did I authorize you to notarize anything on my behalf? No, ma'am. I didn't realize. You realize now. Silence. I can give a statement, she offered, voice low. Sworn. Whatever you need. I'll let my lawyer contact you. Please, she added, almost whispering. Don't ruin me. I didn't mean to. I hung up. By 6 p.m. that evening, my affidavit was signed, my assets locked, my will updated, my estate placed in a new, airtight trust, with Elise as the sole beneficiary. No loopholes, no vague language. Everything was mine again, legally, officially, and everything they tried to take had slipped through their fingers. I poured a glass of water, sat by the window, and waited. The first knock came on Friday evening. Not a phone call, not a text. A knock. The kind that says, I'm here whether you want me or not. I opened the door. Dale stood on the porch, tan jacket, polished shoes, jaw tight. Behind him, Mike leaned against the rail, arms crossed. Mom, Dale said with a smile that didn't touch his eyes. We've been trying to reach you. You have. I didn't move aside. Can we come in? Why? Dale blinked. To talk? Mike's tone was sharper. We heard some things, wanted to clear the air. I held the door just wide enough to see both their faces. You forged my signature, I said evenly. You stole my house. You filed a fraudulent power of attorney and gave yourselves access to everything I own. Dale's mouth opened, but I didn't let him speak. I've filed a sworn affidavit. I've secured legal counsel. I have dated footage proving I wasn't even in the same city when the documents were signed. Mom, Dale said, voice low, you're blowing this out of proportion. No, I said. I'm putting it back into proportion, the correct one. Mike stepped forward, trying to intimidate with posture alone. You think you can just cut us out? I already have. The silence that followed was sharp. Not shocked, furious. Dale tried again, soft. You're being emotional. You're letting that lawyer fill your head with nonsense. You don't have to do this. I did it because of what you did. Mike scoffed. You're going to ruin your sons over a signature? I leaned forward. No, Michael. You ruined yourselves. I'm just finally acknowledging it. He looked like he might explode. Dale stepped between us. We can fix this, he said quickly. We can talk to the county, have things reversed. If you just sign a few things, we can... I'm not signing a single sheet of paper you put in front of me ever again. His smile vanished, just like that. Then you leave us no choice. It came out cold, practiced. I stared at him. Is that a threat? No, he said. It's a consequence. I shut the door, locked it, and waited. Not for them to come back. They would eventually, when they realized just how far they'd fallen from the tree they thought they were climbing. I waited for Elise. She arrived an hour later. No knock, just the sound of her car in the driveway, then the door creaking open with the spare key I'd given her years ago. Grandma? In the kitchen? She stepped in, cheeks flushed from the cold, brows furrowed. They were at my apartment. I looked up. Who? Dad and Uncle Mike. They said you were confused, that someone was manipulating you. I smiled without warmth. They're good at flipping the story. Elise sat down. They're scared. They should be. I didn't let them in, she added quickly. They kept asking about money, about your new accounts. I said I didn't know anything. Good. They said you cut them out of the will. I did. Her eyes widened. Completely? Yes. She sat back. You're serious. Elise, I said gently, they didn't just want my money. They wanted to erase me while I was still breathing. Pretend I was already gone. Take everything and smile at the funeral. She didn't answer right away. Just stared at her hands, fingers knotting together. I'm sorry, she said finally, that they did that, that I didn't see it sooner. You saw what you needed to. And now? I poured her a cup of tea. Now we wait. For what? For them to understand that I'm not afraid of being alone. I've already done alone. I buried your grandfather. I built this house with my bare hands. I raised them while scrubbing floors and managing ledgers. If they think taking my money will break me, I shook my head. They never knew me at all. By Monday morning, my voicemail was full. 3 messages from Dale. Increasingly tight-voiced, carefully rehearsed. 2 from Mike. Short, loud, defensive. 1 from an unknown number, a woman identifying herself as Rebecca Monroe, family counselor. I didn't return any of them. Instead, I went back to Ruthie's. She opened the door in slippers and a housecoat, her hair in soft curls like it always had been, even when we were young. I knew it, she said, arms crossed. You didn't just come see me out of kindness that day. I did, I smiled, but I also need to borrow that newspaper again. She handed it over without a word. Want coffee? No, but I want to show you something. At her kitchen table, I laid out everything. The forged documents, the footage from the gas station, the receipts, the affidavit. Ruthie looked at them the way she used to study crossword clues, with quiet fury disguised as focus. I'll testify, she said finally. You don't have to. Oh, I will, she cut me off. I watched you sit on that couch for 3 hours straight, helping me with my post-op socks. Unless you've learned teleportation, you weren't in Fresno filing legal documents. I chuckled, but my throat was tight. Thank you. She patted my hand. They thought you'd roll over. I nodded. But they forgot who raised them. I left her house with the newspaper folded under my arm and something heavier in my chest. Not grief, not yet, but something like the early bones of mourning. Not for myself, but for who I thought they were. That afternoon, Thomas called. "We're ready," he said. "Everything is in order. I've submitted the fraud report to the Bureau." "Which bureau?" "The one that takes over when forged signatures cross state lines and involve financial assets above $100,000. I let that sink in. "So what now?" "There's a waiting period. A case number will be assigned. You'll be contacted by a field officer for preliminary interviews, but with the evidence you've compiled, this won't take long." I closed my eyes. "Do I have to see them?" "Not unless you want to." "I don't." I thanked him and hung up. It was just after 5 when Elise called. "They're trying to reach me through my office line now," she said. "Told my receptionist it was urgent family business." "They're panicking." "They should be." "Don't engage." "I won't." I sat on the porch after that. Blanket on my knees, the air crisp, my tea going cold on the railing beside me. Across the street, the neighbors were putting up early lights for Halloween. Ghosts swayed in the trees. When had I become the ghost? The phone rang again. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened. It was Dale. "Mom, this is insane. You've always been the one who fixed things, who held everything together. Don't let outsiders get between us. You think Elise will be there for you in 10 years? You think she understands what it takes to run a family?" There was a pause. Then his voice dropped. "We'll contest it. All of it. The will, the trust, the house. You want to drag your own family into court in your last years? Over what? Pride?" No anger. Just strategy. He still thought this was a negotiation. It wasn't. The next morning, I answered the knock before it came. A man in a black windbreaker stood on my porch, badge clipped to his belt. "Mrs. Virginia Hull?" "Yes." "Special Agent Lewinsky, Federal Bureau of Investigation." "May I come in?" I stepped aside and said, "I've been expecting you." Agent Lewinsky didn't look like the movies. No sunglasses, no dramatic tone. Just a short man in his 50s, with tired eyes and a notepad that looked older than he was. He sat across from me in the kitchen, hands folded, coffee untouched. "I've reviewed the initial filing from your attorney," he began. "Forgery of legal documents, fraudulent power of attorney, interstate wire activity." He flipped to a page. "You're aware the total estimated value exceeds $200,000? I nodded. "Then you understand this falls under federal jurisdiction. The charges, if proven, would carry significant weight." Again, I nodded. "That's why I called." He looked at me carefully. "Most people your age don't come forward like this. Most people my age don't expect their own children to rob them blind." He didn't react, just clicked his pen and began noting something down. "Can you confirm your whereabouts on October 12th between 3:30 and 5-ish p.m.? "I was in Bakersfield with a friend who had surgery. We watched the news together." I brought her a newspaper. "Do you have proof?" I slid the receipts across the table. Gas station charge, pharmacy timestamp, the video on a USB in a plastic bag. Agent Lewinsky examined each one, then looked up. "This is thorough. I used to run numbers at the church. I like things organized." He allowed himself a faint smile, then flipped to another page. "Have you had any contact with your sons since the incident?" "Only once. They showed up here. Tried to get me to reverse everything. I told them no." "Did they threaten you?" "They don't use that word, but they tried." He nodded, kept writing. "What happens now?" I asked. "We confirm the timeline, interview the notary, pull bank records, track electronic submissions. If what you say holds, we begin formal proceedings. You may be asked to testify later. I'm ready. He looked at me again, longer this time. People think older women make easy targets. They think quiet means weak, I replied. And your sons? They stopped seeing me as a person years ago. I was just a wallet that cooked. He closed his notebook. We'll be in touch soon. I walked him to the door. He paused before stepping out. For what it's worth, Mrs. Hull, I've worked a lot of fraud cases. Rarely do the victims fight back this hard. Maybe that's their mistake, I said. They never taught me how to be helpless. After he left, I sat on the porch again. The sky was low, clouds drifting in from the hills. Somewhere in the distance, a neighbor's dog barked. It sounded tired. By evening, I'd received 3 new calls. One from a private number I didn't answer. One from a lawyer, Dale's probably, and one from the nursing facility where Henry's brother still lived. Apparently, Dale had tried to move Uncle Roger to a more cost-effective place without telling me. That's when I knew they weren't just greedy. They were desperate. They were burning everything they could touch before the heat caught up. I called the home, spoke to the director, confirmed that no changes were authorized unless they came through me. Then I sat down and wrote a letter. Not to my sons, but to Elise. Elise, I want you to know this isn't about revenge. It's about setting a line, one that should have been drawn years ago. They lied. They stole. They betrayed something sacred, and I let them get away with too much for too long. That ends now. You're the only one who still sees me. Not just the name on a deed, but the woman who made a life from scratch. Whatever happens next, don't be afraid. The storm will pass. I've survived worse. Love, Grandma. The letter was still on the table the next morning when Elise showed up without warning. She didn't knock, just walked in like she used to when she was 5 and needed a Band-Aid. Same urgency, same wide eyes. They're suing, she said, breath short. Dad and Uncle Mike. I just got served at work. I blinked. Served? They're contesting the trust, claiming undue influence, that I manipulated you while you were mentally diminished. I laughed before I meant to. Not a bitter laugh, just surprised at the sheer gall. They think I'm senile? They're saying you've had cognitive decline, that you were coerced, that the new documents are invalid. I stood slowly, poured tea. My hands were steady. Elise, do you know why predators pick the elderly? She shook her head. Because we've spent a lifetime saying yes, keeping the peace, smiling through insult, and they think we've forgotten how to say no. She sat at the kitchen table, speechless. I placed the cup in front of her. But I remember. Grandma, this isn't just noise. They've filed actual paperwork. They hired a lawyer. They're trying to reverse everything you've done. And they'll fail. You're sure? I've lived through 2 recessions, 1 war, a broken pelvis, and the death of the man I loved more than life. I've buried friends, siblings, and 1 baby too small for a name. I looked her in the eye. I am very, very hard to erase. She bit her lip. What do we do? I pulled open the drawer by the stove, took out the file marked FBI, active. We let the Bureau handle the crimes, I said, and we handle the rest. That afternoon, I met Thomas at his office. They've filed a civil petition, he confirmed. Undue influence, mental incompetence, standard stuff. It won't hold. What's our move? We don't just respond, he said. We file our own countersuit. Intentional fraud, damages, elder financial abuse. We bring in everything. the notary, the false filings, the breach of fiduciary trust. He handed me a pen. I signed. That night, I cooked, not from stress, from clarity. I baked Henry's roast chicken with rosemary, mashed potatoes with cream and garlic, a salad like I used to make before the boys started bringing their own health-friendly dressing. Elise stayed for dinner. We didn't talk much. We didn't have to. Halfway through the meal, she looked at me and said, "I'm proud of you." It hit harder than I expected. Not because I needed it, but because I believed her. After she left, I sat at the table alone. The house was quiet. And then I remembered something. Something small. October 12th, the day they said I signed the papers, was also the day I bought a pie at the corner bakery. Lemon meringue. I had the receipt. And the bakery had cameras. Another breadcrumb. I wrote it down. Tomorrow, I'd ask for the footage. And brick by brick, I'd keep building the wall between truth and the lie they tried to write over me. The bakery footage was clearer than I'd expected. Me, in my navy sweater, leaning on the glass counter, pointing to the lemon meringue. Time-stamped, October 12th, 4:13 p.m. I paid in cash. But the timestamp, the camera angle, even the little slip of my shoe catching on the rug, it was all there. "Want a copy?" the owner asked, watching me more carefully now. "Yes," I said. He handed me a flash drive, wrapped it in a napkin. I added it to the folder labeled Proof. Presence. That made 4 independent sources confirming my location during the hour I allegedly sat in an office signing away my life. I sent copies to Thomas, to Agent Lewinsky, and, at Patricia's urging, to the clerk of the court handling the civil challenge from Dale and Mike. Let them see what they were walking into. The response came fast. 2 days later, Thomas called. They want to settle. I was in the garden, pruning dead stems from the last of the autumn roses. I sat on the porch step, dirt still on my gloves. What kind of settlement? They'll withdraw the civil challenge. In exchange, you drop the counterclaim. No damages. No public record. No. He paused. You sure? I want the record. I want it printed in every legal filing from here to Fresno that they forged documents and tried to erase their own mother. Then we proceed. Good. That afternoon, I froze the last remaining joint account, the one Dale had opened years ago, just in case Mom needs help paying bills. It hadn't seen use in a decade. Then I reviewed my Medicare proxy forms, changed the contact number, removed Mike, then the insurance office, then the secondary keys at the bank. By 5 p.m., I was legally, financially, and practically unreachable. I wasn't angry anymore, just thorough. At 6:40 p.m., the phone rang. It was Elise again. "I think you should see this," she said. She sent a photo, a screenshot of Mike's social media post, vague but venomous. Some people would rather burn the family tree than let the branches grow. The comments were worse. Sympathy from acquaintances who didn't know the truth. Condolences from strangers who assumed the post was about a grieving son, not a greedy one. I didn't respond. Public theatrics don't shake me. I've lived too long to care about strangers' opinions. But something about the phrasing stayed with me. Burn the family tree. As if they were the ones being uprooted. As if I hadn't been the one chopped down, ring by ring, year by year, until I became a ghost in my own legacy. That night, I opened the old photo album. Not the one with birthdays and barbecues, the earlier one. Henry in uniform. Me in my waitress apron. A sonogram. A used car with a ribbon made of crepe paper. Every page built this family. every hour worked, every loan paid, every compromise. And they thought they could rebrand me as forgetful, as weak, as obsolete. I slipped a fresh page into the back of the album, blank except for one line in pen. October, the month I remembered who I was. The day the bank letters went out, the silence broke. Official notices, copies of frozen accounts, voided authorizations, and transfer of control were mailed to both Dale and Mike. Nothing dramatic, no warning, just cold, clear language. Access terminated. Beneficiary rights revoked. I imagined them reading the envelopes. I imagined Dale standing in his kitchen, lips tight, trying not to raise his voice in front of his wife. Mike probably crumpled the paper in one fist, then called Dale in a panic. Neither of them called me. Instead, they sent Elise a text. She's going to destroy everything our family built. I read it off her screen and shook my head. They think the family is a vault, I said, not a relationship. That night, Elise stayed late. We sorted files, updated passwords, triple-checked account protections. We didn't talk much. The silence between tasks felt peaceful. "Do you want to see them again?" she asked softly, near midnight. I didn't answer right away. Then, not until they look me in the eye without asking for something. Thomas called the next morning. "They've filed a motion to delay proceedings." "On what grounds?" "They're requesting a mental competency evaluation of you." I closed my eyes. They're really going to say I've lost my mind? They're desperate. Fine, let them try. I'll take the test. "Are you sure?" "I've passed harder exams, and I don't cheat." He laughed at that, but there was tension in it. "I'll arrange it. Court-approved evaluator. Neutral party." "Good." Before I hung up, I said, "And make sure they understand, every delay adds weight to the case. Every motion, every lie, every minute they waste trying to bury the truth becomes part of the record." He paused. "You want them cornered?" "No," I said. "I want them seen." The evaluator came the following Thursday. Middle-aged woman, sharp eyes, worn blazer. She greeted me like I was someone worth knowing, not someone to be assessed and checked off. We sat in the living room. She asked questions. Memory, logic, orientation. I knew the day, the date, the president, the last 4 digits of my first phone number. Then she asked me to draw a clock. 11:10, she said. I drew it. Steady hand, bold lines. No hesitation. When she asked why I thought I was here, I answered without blinking. Because my sons would rather call me crazy than face the truth. She didn't flinch, just made a note. 2 hours later, she stood to leave. She looked at the family photos on the wall, noticed a picture of Dale and Mike taken when they were kids. Arms slung around each other, eyes bright. You raised them? Every day, every night, every worry. And now, they forgot who taught them everything they know. She didn't say anything, didn't have to. Elise found the old voicemail that evening. From 6 years ago, Mother's Day. Mike had left it after he forgot to call earlier. Sorry, Mom. Meant to call earlier. It's been crazy. You know how it gets. Anyway, happy Mother's Day. You're the best. Love you. We listened to it twice. The voice sounded younger, warmer, not rehearsed, almost real. Do you miss them? She asked. I miss the people they used to be. She nodded. I reached across the table, squeezed her hand. But I don't miss how they make me feel now. That was the truth. For years, I'd walked on eggshells around my own children, afraid of losing even the scraps of connection they gave me. Afraid that without them, I'd be left with no one. But I'd already been alone, in a room full of family. That kind of silence is worse than solitude. And now, I had clarity, and Elise, and the full weight of the truth on my side. Let them challenge me in court. Let them line up lawyers and file motions and pretend they were the victims of a cruel old woman. I had footage. I had timelines. I had a signature that wasn't mine, and the memory of exactly where I was when it appeared. But more than that, I had my name back, and they couldn't forge that. The letter from the bureau arrived on a Tuesday. Plain white envelope. No drama, no red tape. Just a seal, a date, and a quiet sentence. Your statement has been reviewed. A formal investigation has been opened. I sat with it in my lap for a long time, running a thumb over the embossed edge of the page. It didn't feel like triumph. It felt like gravity, like the slow click of a door that had locked behind me. Elise was the first to read it aloud. Her eyes flicked to the closing paragraph. They're requesting to interview Dale and Mike. Good. They're also subpoenaing the notary. Better. I folded the letter and placed it in the folder labeled Active, Federal. I'd run out of tabs by now. The drawer groaned when I slid it shut. Outside, the wind was shaking the trees. A storm was coming. Dale called that night. I didn't answer, but I listened to the voicemail, calmly, like a surgeon reviewing scans. Mom, what are you doing? FBI involvement? Is this really how you want to end things? You think Elise can take care of you when your memory starts going? When you can't drive anymore? When the roof leaks? He paused, then added, You're going to need us. Sooner than you think. It wasn't a threat. It was a calculation, the same one he'd used for years, betting that I'd fold out of fear of being alone, that I'd exchange dignity for the illusion of family. But I wasn't afraid anymore, and I wasn't alone. The FBI called me the next morning, Agent Lewinsky, calm as ever. We've conducted preliminary interviews, he said. Your sons aren't cooperating. I'm not surprised. The notary has submitted a full statement. She confirms your absence during the signing. She should. She never saw me. We're also pulling handwriting comparisons. You'll see the difference. Already have. There was a pause. You sure you're up for this, Mrs. Hull? It's going to get public. I've been invisible long enough. He exhaled. All right. Next step is a deposition. You'll be formally recorded. Your sons will receive notice. Let them. That afternoon, I went to the salon. Not out of vanity, out of purpose. I had my hair cut, neat and sharp around the jaw. I bought a new blouse. Navy blue, clean lines, strong shoulders. I wanted to sit across from whoever asked me questions looking like the woman who built this life, not the one they tried to write out of it. The stylist smiled when she finished. You've got one of those faces, she said. Looks like it's made of iron and velvet. I laughed softly. Good. That's exactly what I'm made of. 2 days later, I sat in the deposition room, recorder running, lawyers on both sides, Elise in the back corner, quiet but unmoving. The questions were precise. Dates, names, details. I answered them all. Without notes, without pauses, without flinching. And then came the last one. The government representative leaned forward. Mrs. Hull, do you believe your sons knowingly committed fraud to gain control of your estate? I looked straight at him. I don't believe it, I said. I know it. Silence stretched across the table. I taught them to write their names, I added. And I know when one of them tried to write mine. The recording clicked off a minute later. Elise drove me home in silence. Halfway there, she reached across and squeezed my hand. No words. She didn't need them. That night, I took down the framed family photo from the hallway, the one from 2001, the last time we'd all smiled in the same picture. I didn't burn it. I didn't throw it away. I just set it quietly in a drawer. Some truths deserve to be seen. Others deserve to rest. I invited Dale over for tea, not as surrender, as bait. He arrived 20 minutes late, all polished charm and practiced frowns. No Mike this time. Just Dale, playing the reasonable one. The good son. "I was surprised to hear from you," he said, stepping into the foyer like he owned it. "You shouldn't have been," I replied. "This was always going to end with the truth." He blinked, then smiled. Too wide, too smooth. "I think we've both said things we regret." I led him into the kitchen. The same kitchen where he once spilled juice on his first homework. The same chair he now pulled out to lean toward me with hands clasped like a negotiator. "You've made your point," he said quietly. "But Elise, really? You're going to trust a child with your estate? She's 31. She's impulsive, emotional. You need someone steady." "You mean you." "I mean someone who knows how to protect what you've built." I poured the tea. He didn't touch his cup. "Dale," I said, calm as breath. "What were you doing on October 12th? He straightened. "I was with Mike. Working." "In Fresno?" "Yes." "Do you remember what time you were at the notary's office?" Around 4? "Why? You mean when I was buying lemon pie in Bakersfield? When the cameras at Midway Gas recorded me filling my tank? When my friend Ruthie saw me on her couch with a newspaper dated that same day?" His jaw clenched. "I don't know what you think you're doing." "I'm recording this." He froze. I slid my phone onto the table. The screen was already dimmed, but the red dot blinked. Not flashy. Not aggressive. Just there. "I invited you here so you could have the chance to speak plainly. To be honest. To clean a wound before the knife goes deeper." His voice dropped. "You're threatening me?" "No," I said softly. "I'm giving you the last quiet moment you'll have in this house." He looked around, not at me, but at the room. The clock. The cabinets. The window he once broke with a baseball when he was 8. "You'd really destroy your family over this?" "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just refusing to pretend it wasn't already broken." He didn't say anything, just stood up slowly. The chair creaked behind him. As he reached the door, he paused. "She'll forget this one day," he muttered. "You will too. Old age comes for everyone." I met his eyes. "Maybe," I said. "But if it does, I'll forget birthdays and recipes. Not betrayal." He left without finishing his tea. The recording wasn't legally binding, not alone, but it was a tone, a pressure, a crack in the mask that, combined with everything else, gave the Bureau what they needed. 2 days later, Agent Lewinsky called again. "We have enough to proceed." "Criminally?" "Yes." "Will I have to appear in court?" "Not necessarily. We're negotiating a plea. They've seen the weight of the evidence. Their lawyer knows where this ends." I nodded, though he couldn't see me. "Elise will inherit?" I asked, unchallenged. "And me?" He paused, then said, "You win, Mrs. Hull." But it didn't feel like a win. It felt like a verdict. That night, Elise came over. I told her everything about the tea, the recording, the phone call from the agent. She sat in silence for a long time, then said, "Do you want them punished?" "No," I said. "I want them removed. I want peace more than revenge." She nodded. "You'll have it." I looked at her, really looked, and saw something in her face I hadn't seen since Henry was alive. Not youth, not idealism. Strength. Quiet. Watchful. Inherited. The next morning, I went into the garage, dusted off the box marked Henry. Documents. Inside was a letter he'd written the year before he died. Folded, unopened, labeled in his hand. "For when the time comes." I opened it. The paper smelled like the attic. Like time. "Virginia, I know you'll be the last one standing. You always were the strongest of us, the one who cleaned up, held firm, stayed kind through everything. If the boys ever forget what you've given them, I hope you remember this. You don't owe anyone your silence. You taught them how to walk. Let the world teach them what it means to fall. With love, H." The official letters arrived by certified mail. One for Dale, one for Mike. Federal notices, charges filed. I wasn't there when they opened them, but I imagined Dale reading his in the garage, the light over his head flickering. Mike probably tore his open in the front seat of his truck, hands shaking, mouth already forming excuses. They'd known it was coming, but knowing doesn't soften the blow. I didn't hear from them that day, not even Elise. Just the wind brushing the hedges and the drip of the faucet in the laundry room. A rhythm I'd been meaning to fix, but now didn't want to. It felt like the house breathing again. Patricia called the next morning. Not Thomas. Patricia, the one who'd first listened, calmly, without interruption, when I told her what had happened. "They're going to take the plea," she said. I closed my eyes. What does it mean? No trial, no media, no cross-examinations, just paperwork and consequences. And what will those consequences be? They'll lose access to your estate permanently, financial penalties, possibly probation, possibly more. No jail? Not likely, but it goes on the record. I let that sink in. A name is a legacy. And now theirs would carry a stain they couldn't erase with flowers or phone calls. "Thank you," I said. "You did this," Patricia replied. "You remembered who you were before they started talking over you." I didn't speak, just nodded into the silence. The hardest part wasn't the process. It was the stillness after. Not because I doubted my choices. I didn't. Not because I missed them. Not really. It was the grief for the version of me that stayed quiet for so long. The mother who excused things, forgave too early, swallowed hurt like pills. I didn't miss them. I missed the time I lost to trying to be someone they wouldn't leave. Now they were gone anyway, and I was still standing. Elise brought over groceries that night, without asking. Just filled the fridge, folded my laundry, then sat across from me like it was the most natural thing in the world. "They won't speak to me anymore," she said quiet. "I'm sorry." "I'm not." She looked at me, then added, "They called me disloyal." I smiled. "You are, but not to them." She blinked. "You're loyal to the truth." "And that makes people nervous." We sat for a while like that. Two women in a house they tried to steal, sharing tea no one poured for us but ourselves. "Grandma? Yes? When this is over, what do you want to do?" I thought about it, then said, "Buy myself a new winter coat. Not because I need one, just because I can." She laughed. "That's it? For now." She didn't press. She didn't fill the silence. She just sat with me. And that was enough. Later that night, I found myself standing in the hallway, staring at a picture from 1994. Christmas. The boys were still young. Elise was a baby in my arms. Mike had a missing front tooth. Dale wore a plastic firefighter helmet. I didn't cry. I just reached behind the frame and took it down. Not in anger, not to erase, just to make space for something else. Maybe I'd frame the bakery receipt, or the gas station timestamp, or a copy of the affidavit. Not out of spite, but as a reminder that quiet does not mean weak, and dignity, once reclaimed, does not return to the shelf. The official notice came by courier, just past noon. White envelope. Thin. Formal. Plea accepted. Case closed. Record sealed. It was over. I sat in the kitchen, the light spilling across the table like it had done every day of this war, and read the page twice. They admitted to it. Forgery, fraud, elder financial abuse. No contest, no denial. Just quiet submission, like men who'd run out of options, but still didn't have the decency to say they were sorry. There wouldn't be jail. I never expected that. But the record was permanent. The revocations, the fines, the civil agreement, all binding. They couldn't touch another account. Couldn't challenge the trust. Couldn't walk into a bank with my name on their breath again. And that was enough. Elise arrived an hour later, out of breath and furious. "They're spinning it," she said. "Mike told people it was a misunderstanding. Dale's wife posted something about family being a complicated battlefield." I raised an eyebrow. "Let them." "But it's not fair." "It's not about fair," I said. "It's about done." She slumped in the chair across from me. "I want them to feel it." "They do," I said. "They just won't show it in public." "Men like that only bleed behind closed doors." She didn't argue, and for the first time in weeks, we let the house go quiet. That evening, I pulled out the winter coat catalog. Found one with deep green wool, wide buttons, and room in the shoulders for someone who still walked like she'd carried others her whole life. I ordered it. Elise laughed when I told her. "You really did it," she said. "No," I replied. "We did." A week passed, then another. The calls stopped. So did the letters. No more knocks at the door, no more veiled threats. Just silence. Not the uncomfortable kind. The kind that settles over a place like dust, soft and earned. I started waking up before dawn again, like I used to. No racing heart. No mental checklists of defenses and folders and lawyers. Just the sound of the kettle. The faint creak of old floors. I began writing letters. Not to anyone in particular. Just reflections. What I'd learned. What I'd let go. What I would never let happen again. On the 10th morning, I found a small box on the porch. No return address. I brought it inside, cautious but curious. Inside was a folded piece of paper. One line, handwritten. "We didn't know how far you'd go." Underneath it, a photo. The three of us, me, Dale, and Mike. Taken on some long-forgotten vacation. I was smiling too hard. They weren't smiling at all. I put the paper down, held the photo in my hands, then quietly slid it into the back of a drawer, behind expired coupons and a broken keychain. I didn't need it anymore. That night, I stood outside, the wind colder than before, stars sharp overhead, and I said it out loud, not for them, but for myself. "I'm not who you thought I was." I waited. No echo, no correction, just stillness, and something close to peace. I didn't hold a grudge. I held a boundary. There's a difference. A grudge poisons the holder. A boundary says you may not pass here again. It was spring when I finally took the plastic off the garden chairs. I planted herbs, trimmed the roses, Painted the porch railings for the first time in 5 years. The air smelled like damp soil and something older. The kind of scent that only comes from ground that's known both storm and sun. Elise helped. Quietly, efficiently. She didn't ask what I wanted to do next. She just showed up every Saturday, gloves in hand, sleeves rolled, like this was how the world had always worked. Women repairing things no one else thought were broken. At one point, she asked if I wanted to replace the mailbox. The old one was rusted, leaning, still scarred from the days I'd wait for letters that didn't come. "No," I said. "Let it lean." She smiled, then went back to weeding. A few weeks later, a letter arrived from Dale. Handwritten, no return address. The envelope was thick, expensive, as if quality paper could soften dishonesty. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the table for a day, then another. Watched the light move across it each afternoon, wondered if he'd sat at his desk like I used to, rewriting drafts until the words felt clean. On the third day, I opened it. 4 pages. No apology. Just explanation. Excuses disguised as context. A few lines about pressure. Something about legacy. A vague reference to doing what we thought was best. At the end, "I hope one day you can forgive us. I still believe family matters most." I folded the pages, set them back inside the envelope, and tucked them behind the photo in the drawer. Not to forget, but to remind myself how easily the wrong words can sound almost right. Later that week, I went into town, wore the green coat, hair brushed back, shoulders tall. I stopped by the bakery, bought a new lemon pie. The cashier remembered me. "You're the one who asked for footage, right?" That was me. "Everything okay now?" "Better," I said. "Not perfect, but better." She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. That Sunday, Elise found me on the porch with an old box in my lap, the one Henry kept letters in. She sat beside me without asking what was inside. "You all right?" she asked. I looked out at the street. The trees were full again. Light touched the grass in long strokes. "I am," I said. "For the first time in years, I am." She nodded. We sat like that a while, not as grandmother and granddaughter, but as 2 women who had learned in different ways that survival doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes in silence, in not flinching, in naming things honestly and refusing to let them name you back. Before she left that day, Elise turned to me in the doorway. "Are you going to respond to his letter?" I shook my head. "There's nothing left to answer." "You sure?" "Yes." She stepped outside, then paused. "He's not going to understand." "That's not my job anymore," I said, and closed the door behind her. I don't tell this story to be remembered. I tell it because too many women die with the truth still folded in their hands, afraid it will hurt someone, or change something, or expose a crack in the good mother myth. But silence is not protection. It's erasure. So here it is. I was lied to, manipulated, treated like property by the very people I fed, clothed, raised from bone, and I fought back. Not loudly, not cruelly, but completely. And I won. Not because they lost, but because they no longer define what winning means. I live in my home. I drink tea with my granddaughter. I sleep without wondering who's taking what behind my back. And when I pass this story down, not just the facts, but the heartbeat of it, it won't be wrapped in shame. It'll be wrapped in strength, like everything else I ever gave.